if they're only 90% committed to the task of shoving their head into a dark cave with 1.5 ton going through their ass, we got a problem.
I want to go into some of your scrum coaching. I've watched some of your stuff, and I've actually seen you firsthand. You did a session down in Otago that I watched. I played first five my whole career, and so I just watched you coach because I was interested to see how you do your thing. And I loved how quickly you engaged all the coaches that were there to watch the players, and just broke down that wall within a minute, and just let's get on with it. But I want you to touch on kind of your three areas that I've heard you mention, the balance, speed, and power, and maybe just explain why they're important to you when it comes to coaching.
Well, balance we need right across the board, not just for scrummaging. So I went and spent a day with Tom Walsh, the world champion shot putter.
Oh,
and part of his warm-up is he hops on a slack line, like a tightrope, if you like. It's just a strop with a ratchet on it, So he goes out there, this big man, ex-prop he was, from Timaru Boys he was.
Yep.
And he tippy toes along this tightrope, this slack line. So I said, shit, I like that. He said, it's good from a balance, but it's also, he was too one-sided strong than the other, and it helped balance him up. So I went and bought a couple of those and took them to the All Blacks. So our boys started using them. Every Tuesday in the gym, we'd tie them between apparatus as part of their weights. They'd come back around and hop on the slack line and do their slack lining.
Wow.
So hence, just from shot putting, what'd you learn,
Yeah.
And even from that, I'm having coffee tomorrow with Dale Stevenson, who's Tom's coach.
Yeah.
So we still communicate and catch up and just coaches talking.
Yeah.
So
the boys must have loved that.
Pardon?
The boys must have loved having a crack at that.
I'll tell you how they love it. The first time I used it, I tied it between two goalposts.
Oh, yeah.
And the boys all come out and they're all practicing, after training. And in that next day, I get a video from Ofatunga Farsi.
Yeah.
He's gone out and got one. He's tied it to his tow bar of his car across to a tree. And he did the whole length and got his wife to video it, and then they sent it to me. It was a challenge for him to do the whole length of it, and he did it, So, great.
So that's the importance of balance. Speed was the next one that I've heard you mention.
Well, when the referee says set, there has to be some form of movement forward. Otherwise, you get hit on your heels. You have to generate some forward momentum. So, in today's new scrum rules, there's a very small gap. So you have to educate your players to fire out of the blocks. So no different to you when you were doing your speed training and you had harness on you and then they released you, so you overspeed. Overspeed training, I do it the same with line-out jumpers. Overspeed jump, I get them to jump quick and they can physically through different bands. So scrummaging, I put harness on them with a D-ring at the front. Line them up on a sled, single sled scrum machine. I go crouch bind. When I say set, they have to engage. But when I call set, I fire them in. So they're actually engaging far quicker than they would in a game. So I overspeed train them. So they learn, you do 10 of those with the harness and then do 10 without the harness. They've got their firing pattern. They can operate off a small gap or a big gap, but they know how to really fire. Overspeed train them.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And then the third one of the three, so balance, speed, and then the power.
You get power, as I said, from the ground and how you transfer it through your body. So the strongest pushing position really is, as I said to before, we have two contact points, shoulders and feet. If you draw a line from the front of your shoulder to the front of your toe, and you draw a line or hold a flag, stick, it should just cut across the front part of your knee. So say an inch behind the front of your knee. That's the line. They call it a biarticular line. That's the strongest position biarticular for human beings to be in a horizontal position. So that's what you're trying to find. When you are there, your knee is roughly 120 degrees at the knee. So when you're in the squat rack and you go down the bottom and you come back up, about a third of the way up, you find that sweet spot where you know you can power out of it. If you pause at that sweet spot, that's roughly 120 degrees at your knee.
Yeah.
So my job is to teach them how to generate the power. So the best way is to be in that strongest pushing position biomechanically. So I educate them with like harness gear and all sorts of stuff to get into that nice, strong pushing position, load them, a bit more isometric loading. And then I get them to do a fair bit of movement because you move and then get back into your strong spot. Move back into your strong spot. So you educate them on where their sweet spot is at all times. That's your strong spot.
I think your example of the squat, I think everyone can relate to that sweet spot, being able to get out of it.
Well, we are just squatters in the squat rack, scrummagers. When you come into the squat rack, you put the bar across your traps, you shorten your neck, you give a big chest, you do a pelvic tilt, you lock your core, your feet are shoulder width apart. When you come down, you got a pelvic tilt, you're strong, and when you come back up, you find that sweet spot and power out. So that we just got to educate them from being vertical to horizontal.
When it comes down to the individual, how much time do you like to be able to spend with someone? I'm a goal kicker and love coaching people to kick, but as you know, it takes a long time to get your ideas and get them really, really nailing the skill. What's your take?
If you get a young, I go and help at the under 20s every year. I'd say 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 years for a prop to really hone his technique, because he's doing other stuff as well, learning how to be a great defender and great ball carrier and great passer and all this other stuff. But for scrummaging, he needs about 4 years under his belt, I've found.
I'm stoked you brought that up. So that 4 years, what does that look like week to week? How many hours and repetition and how much work does it take?
You can shortcut it if you're a guy like Owen Franks, who every second of every day he's doing his sit-ups, he's checking himself in the mirror, he's getting his repetitions in. But it's no good repeating something if it's not right. So there is no place for practicing bad technique, whether it be catch pass, whether it be kicking a goal, or whether it be setting yourself up in scrums. So you need to practice that, and it needs to you just have to get that setup part right. So if you liken yourself to a golf coach, what our job, like you're a goal kicker and I'm, say, a scrum guy, our job as golf coaches is to get them to hold the club and address the ball correctly. That's our first job. If we can't get them to do that on a regular basis, the odds of them hitting the ball where they want it is very slim.
Yeah.
So really nail that first part, which is your setup. So again, you just got to get the numbers in of repeating good techniques. So it just comes natural, even under fatigue. It's natural for you.
You mentioned Owen Franks, and I wonder if there's an example of someone that was a real slow burn. They just couldn't get it, and maybe an example of how long it took for someone to finally click with something in the scrum.
Well, some of them are restricted by their body. An example, some young front rowers, they scrummage up on their toes. The reason is their dorsiflexion hasn't developed properly enough to allow them to get more sprigs in the ground. So they're basically scrummaging up on their tippy toes. Any movement, they collapse.
Yeah.
Now, so they've just got to get the time in. One is flexibility through the ankle joint, make sure there's no impingement there. The other thing is getting thousands of bloody sit-ups in to get into that range of motion so you can get down and give yourself a fighter's chance, because you haven't got a chance up on your toes with no sprigs in the ground. I'll give you the tip. And it's not through them wanting to do it. They physically can't actually do it. These are younger guys.
Yeah.
As you get older, you can. So how do you shortcut it? Get the numbers in.
Yeah.
Get the numbers into getting into that motion so you can get that dorsiflexion operating properly.
Mm. I'm a big believer in flow training and flow state training, where you don't have to be doing everything at 100%. You can have those sessions where you're just working around 70, 80%. And I'm wondering if scrum positioning and getting all these reps in where it doesn't have to be full noise all the time. Are you a believer in use that?
Yep. Yeah, I am. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're coaching and they're learning. Learning is motivation. Motivation's enjoyment. So they have to, every time you go to coach them, they have to be learning. So for me, I never coach without video. Unless it's shocking weather conditions, I always have the ability to say, let's go and have a look at that one. And we go to the tent, which is next door to me, and there's 2 massive TV screens, and we replay the last maul, the last line out, the last scrum, whatever we want to look at. Let's talk about it. What are we seeing? Now, a lot of coaches say, I haven't got time for that stuff. So I'd rather do, say, 10 mauls, which are rubbish. I'd rather do 5, but they're top quality. Because we do 2, go and have a look at it. Maybe do 1 more, have a look at it. Do 2 more, come and have a look at it. So you're always checking. Again, no place for poor technique.
Yeah.
That's learning. So I do the same with scrums. I have about 4 or 5 cameras going.
Yeah.
I want to look at something, or the boys say to me, can I have a look at that, Chrono? Of course you can. I'll never say no to them.
With the days where I think it was 04 to 11 where you were the scrum coach and weren't in other areas, how did you go with time? Because these guys all have their Super Rugby commitments. They come to the All Blacks and it must feel quite rushed. So how do you get enough time in the week to spend on it?
Good question. What I did, I used to go around the franchises reasonably regularly. Watch them at training. Some coaches will say, could you take a scrum session so I can stand back and watch?
Yeah.
No problem. So I'm there observing the player. I'm observing all the games, the footage, et cetera, et cetera. So you're probably doing 3/4 of the work before you get your hands on them in the All Blacks. But the biggest thing for coaches, every coach will tell you, no matter what area he coaches, he never has enough time. And I was the same. And I'd walk away frustrated, because I never nailed what I wanted to nail. And then I worked out that the head coach isn't going to give any more time. So how the hell are you going to deal with this?
Yeah.
So there's 2 things I come up with. For about the last 6-7 years, after every session I coach in any area of any team, I rate myself out of 10 how I coached it. Then I rate out of 10, how much learning did they get? Now, if I rated myself 9 out of 10 about how I coached it, but their learning was 2 out of 10, we've got a problem. So they have to be hand in hand. I have to coach well, but they have to learn. They have to be learning. The next thing was, how do I get rid of the frustration of the clock on me? So most coaches says you got 25 minutes to run your session. So you get your bit of paper the night before and you write, number 1, I'm doing this, 2 minutes. Number 2, I'm doing that, 3 minutes. Number 3, and you work your way down. And you know exactly what you want, and you know how long it's going to take. You've played it in your mind 100 times. Off you go. You coach it. You're looking at your watch. After 2 minutes, you blow the whistle, say, right, we're on to the next thing. And little Johnny says, oh, can we do 1 more of that, Chrono? No, we haven't got time for that. Can I have a look at it on the video? No, we'll look at it after training. So you get to the next one. And then the players don't bother talking because they know they're getting nowhere. You're under the watch. The watch is dictating how you coach. And then at the end of the session, you walk away very frustrated and you're pissed off because the head coach hasn't given you enough time. So what I learned was, write my 6 things out by all means. Then circle the 2 that you must nail at all costs.
Yeah.
Then I go and see the trainer and I say, tell me when I've got 2 minutes left of my session. So I virtually never look at my watch again.
Yeah.
The watch doesn't control me.
Yeah. I really rate that. And
the flow that you get, and you coach completely differently. Can we have a look at that last line out more, Chrono? Of course we can.
yeah.
Can we do one more? Yep, sure, no problem, boys. Yep. And all of a sudden, out of the 6 things that I probably wanted to nail or do, I probably did 5 of them, but I did them well. And I nailed the 2 most important things. I'm quite prepared to sacrifice the rest to nail the 2 most important things that the boys need at that training on that day.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you walk away, you coach completely different. I wish I'd learnt that when I was a young coach.
Yeah, that's absolutely great advice to have your 6, but the 2 you want to nail is the most important thing. Yep. With your coaching, a lot of people go from playing to coaching pretty quickly, and you kind of have a feel for what things were like when you were a player. As you've got older and got more experience, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay understanding for what the boys are going through and feeling, as you say, on the field?
Well, I think I've always had a pretty good rapport with the boys. They're honest. That's all I want. I want honesty. I'll be honest with you. No bullshit and jelly beans is what I tell them.
Yeah.
I'll just turn the light on. Hold on.
Yeah, right. No shit.
Yeah. So no bullshit and jelly beans. Don't tell me what I want to hear. We haven't got time for that stuff. Just be honest with me. I'm a big boy. I can take it, you know.
Yeah.
But through this honesty and open channeling, and I'll tell you something about players, and I'm talking about even if you're just coaching a first 15 or a senior team. If you ask them, what's the issues here? Generally, they'll know.
Yeah.
If you allow them, if you go along to, I get asked to go along to, say, coach a first 15, and they'll say, "Oh, we want you to look at the lineout." Oh, how many games you had? First thing I ask. Oh, we've had 4 plus 2 pre-season. Oh, that's good. What's been going well in your lineout? Now, give me. Anything else? Oh, that's really good. What do you think we need to look at to try and help you get a wee bit better in some of the areas? If you allow them, they'll tell you. Because I used to go in as a young coach and I'd give them my repertoire of line-out coaching or scrum coaching. And I'd be driving home and I think, shit, I hope that's what they wanted. I never asked them. So by asking them and allowing them time to have a wee think, they'll actually give you the answer. Guarantee it. And then you'll say, right, well, let's go and work on those 2 things that you told me. So I'm not taking up time on stuff that they're already good at. They know the 2 things we got to get better at. So we know it. Then I go, right, now you told me A and B we need to work on. Have we covered that off? Are you happy with that? Yeah, that's great. Anything else? No, we're happy. Done.
Yeah. One thing that I've also picked up from you is comments like my personal view and for me and the way that I coach it. Those types of comments are always good to set up what you are coaching. Yep.
And I'm always open, as I said, I'm always open to get challenged, for the boys in the right manner. We all treat each other with respect. Like when I coach, no matter first 15 or the All Blacks, I call them gentlemen. Over here, please, gentlemen. Like it's always relevant, polite, clear instructions, and then we get the feedback. The feedback is the gold. To me, why would you do 10 scrums in a row and there's no feedback at training?
Yep.
I know when I first started at the All Blacks, that they would collapse a bit at training because it was I don't know, whether it's poor technique or whether or not, it was a one-upmanship. I don't know. So what I did was I said, we can't have this because on Saturday, there's a consequence.
Yeah.
There has to be a consequence at training. So from now on, any clap scrum, I think it was Chris Jack was my lock, you count them. And at the end of our scrum session, every forward will line up on the goal line, lying on his stomach, with his elbows out front. And for every clap scrum, I'm going to walk out 10 metres. And the first day they had 4 clap scrums. So I was out 40 metres. I said, when I blow my whistle, you have to crawl out to me by only using your elbows. You're paralysed from the waist down.
Yeah.
So that took a while. So eventually they all get out to me. I said, thank you. End of training. Following training, we do scrums. I said, right, same rules apply. All of a sudden, there's 1 clap scrum. After that, it's a rarity to have a clap scrum.
Yeah.
Good technique will help you. You've got to teach some good technique, but also no bailing out, no rolling shoulders, no getting out of, stay in there. It's you know, that's the game. On a sad day, it can be a penalty, so we can't have it at training. So there has to be a consequence. So I think that was a good thing to do too. Once your players have the right technique, then after that, we have to have a different attitude that we don't collapse.
Mm. It's gold. With dealing with the best players in the world and guys that have been doing it a while, they might have been called into the All Blacks and have had a full career under their belt. Like all skills, there's different ways to do things. When a player does something in the scrum that is different, that you might have a different idea of and what works for them, how do you deal with that player?
No problem. I have no problem with them coming up with ideas for themselves or for the scrum, and we'll have a yarn about it. All I say to them is, again, I go back to the golf analogy, that we've got you all swinging the club pretty good and hitting the ball pretty good here. So if you want to change something in your swing, we'll have a discussion first, a really clear discussion. And if we think it's worthwhile between you and I, we'll give it a wee go, a wee trial at training, and then we'll have a discussion again. Do we change our swing of our golf club or do we not?
Yeah.
But there's a process.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you keep changing, and in the end, you don't know how to hit the ball. You've lost your swing.
Great example. I'm wondering if there's any stories or people that stand out as just people that just work. They just have put in more work than other people, which is why they got the results that they got as a player.